Welcome to Stache Sports Episode 9. Today's topics will be about the college football playoffs Round 1 that start this week on your local ESPN channels and TNT Sports. First, last week was the Heisman ceremony, and we all know Mendoza, the quarterback of Indiana, who turned him around and made him win the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State in a close game, won the Heisman. But the second place winner, Diego Pave, is the one who made the most news that night. Later on, after he posted on social media and went to a club and partied. Going to clubs and partying is okay for a sports player because they're all adults, but you still have to party well and party enough and not get into any trouble because all the media is around you and you can get caught no matter if you think you can't get caught with the media these days. But anyway, after the ceremony was over, Diego Pave decided to go on social media and post effing voters, talking about the Heisman voters. And most of the Heisman voters are people that are either in the Heisman already, or like Herb Herbstreit, that are college football announcers or high up in the college ranks. So that's not going to bode well for him. Also, later in the night, Diego Pave decided to go to the club, which is okay because he's an adult, but you gotta watch out because the media is everywhere, and had a sign that said F Indiana, the college that Mendoza went to. This is going to tarnish his character, in my opinion. It could ruin his draft capital going into next year's draft because the kid is immature. Also, when the kid started getting hyped up, he went on stuff like the Theo Vaughn podcast, and Theo Vaughn became famous and might have started dating his mom, but that's another story. And his mom makes all the attention about her when they show her in the crowd. That's one big family with a lot of drama, and saying F Indiana and F voters is not going to help. Diego Pave, he is 5'9". He is shorter than Russell Wilson, and going into the draft, when Russell Wilson was drafted, they said that Russell Wilson is going to be a short quarterback, and he might not last, but Russell Wilson proved him wrong. I don't know if Diego Pave, after having one good year at Vanderbilt and making Nashville known for football, other than the Music City, or college football, other than the Music City, would help. Also, in my personal opinion, I think that Diego Pave's recent actions might have caused him money in this year's draft. Because what most NFL teams are looking for is character. A good character comes from good player. Even if you're a good player and you have a sour character, they might not want to draft you because they don't want all that baggage coming to them and knowing what happens. I also think that Diego Pave could be the next Johnny Football. Johnny Manziel, who was drafted a couple of years ago by the Browns, but liked to party too much and partied himself out of the NFL. I think the same could happen with Diego Pave if he is drafted by a football team this year. Hopefully it's not my Pittsburgh Steelers because he has too much baggage and I don't think he's good enough to live up to the hype and distract us from the baggage he already has and the mom and the family that act like a circus. But hopefully he learned his lesson after posting all that stuff about F Indiana and F voters. That is a sore loser in my book, and I've lost more respect for him after that. This week we have the college football playoffs starting, round 1. A lot of people, like I said before, are crying still that Notre Dame's not in it, and Notre Dame's not in the bowl game. But the show must go on with teams that win their conferences. If Notre Dame was in the conference, then they would be in the bowl be in the game right now. The first game we have is Oklahoma and Alabama. Earlier this year, Oklahoma beat Alabama in a close game. It would be nice to see Alabama win since they have 3 losses, but I don't know if Alabama's going to win. And I picked Oklahoma earlier on this year in my pick'ems. In my video earlier on, I picked Oklahoma to win. Next, we got Ole Miss and Tulane. Will Ole Miss be affected by not having a coach, by having a new coach in place since their coach left to go to Ole Miss who called all their plays this year? I don't know. I think that will be a closer game. But I think Ole Miss still pulls it out even though they have a new coach this year, a new coach in the playoffs, and their coach that coached them all year left them high and dry to go to LSU. Next, we got James Madison and the Ducks. Yes, I know a lot of the people on these experts say that James Madison doesn't belong because they don't play in a good enough conference. but they still won the conference championship game. James Madison, I think, belongs, but I don't think they have a chance against Oregon. I think Oregon will be too much for them to handle, and I think this might be a little less closer than people, not close at all. But like I said about the Buccaneers, I could be wrong about that. So we'll see what happens to that. Next, got Texas A&M and Miami. Miami is a team that snuck in at the last second over Notre Dame, which is right, because Miami this year beat Notre Dame and should have been above Notre Dame and not below them, but I don't get that. I don't know why Notre Dame was above them in the first place. But anyway, I think that's going to be a good game. Texas A&M is looking real good this year, and so is Miami. But I want Miami to win so Miami can go further in the playoffs and maybe play Georgia if they can to see what will happen. Because Miami's quarterback used to be the University of Georgia quarterback before he transferred to Miami. So it would be interesting to see him in the playoffs play against his old team. But all I want is just close games in the playoffs, no matter who's winning or who's losing. I think Mendoza will do good for Indiana and maybe lead them to the championship game. But Ohio State, Jeremy Sen, has a lot to say too. The Oregon Ducks quarterback, I'd like to see more of because I haven't been able to watch much Oregon football this year. And he's a quarterback that could be possibly for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he has a good character. He's not like Diego Pave, who thinks the show's all about him, and his family who thinks the show's all about him. Hopefully Diego Pave has learned his lesson, because if he keeps running his mouth like he has, it will just ruin his draft stock even more, and he'll go down and down in the draft and lose money. But who knows? Maybe he wants to be a podcaster like his best buddy Theo Vaughn. But I don't know anything about that. Still, T.J. Watt. There's no news on T.J. Watt injury update today, or Nick Herbig, but I'll keep you updated as long as that goes along. As far as that goes along, I'll keep you updated. But again, I have Oklahoma beating Alabama. I have the Ducks smashing James Madison, but maybe James Madison might keep it close. I haven't been able to see James Madison football, but I believe in my heart of hearts that James Madison belongs, because at the end of the day, you should get rewarded no matter how strong your conference is or how weak your conference is. You should get rewarded and make the playoffs over a team like Notre Dame, who could have, near the end of the year, tried to schedule better opponents to have a tougher Stanford schedule. But Miami's Stanford schedule was tougher, according to all the experts, when they did it near the end, because Notre Dame was playing lower-ranked teams in the end of the game. But Notre Dame has them to only complain about. Let's hope there's a good playoffs weeks. Also, I think Ole Miss beats Tulane with a new coach. But that'll be interesting to see how good the players play with a new coach. And if they just keep the same system, which I believe they will, just have a different caller calling them. And last but not least, we have Texas A&M and Miami. That's going to be one of the best games this year besides Oklahoma and Miami, I think. Besides Oklahoma and Alabama. That's going to be one of the better games this week. Texas A&M is coming off a good year in the SEC, and so is Miami in the ACC. But both of the teams didn't make their conference championship games. So they have extra rest. So we'll see what happens. I hope Miami wins, because I have friends that like Miami. I don't really know anyone that likes Texas A&M, but I don't really care for Texas A&M myself. But Oklahoma over Alabama, the Ducks over James Madison, Ole Miss over Tulane, and Miami over Texas A&M. I guess we can find out later how right my picks are, because I'm not always right on my picks. And sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. Let's hope this new ownership for the Pittsburgh Penguins pans out well. I'll give you more update on that too as that goes along. Let's hope there's a good college football player. Also, I think NC State will win their bowl game this week against Memphis. But I think that game is on Saturday too. All the games, you can look at your schedule to see what time you're on. The first game is Oklahoma and Alabama. That's tomorrow night on ESPN. And the rest of the games are this weekend on ESPN or TNT Sports. But yes, But yeah, I think it's going to be a good playoffs this year with a lot of good quarterbacks and good defenses when it gets to the second round. Maybe some teams might shock us like James Madison in the first round, but I don't know. But I don't have enough tape on James Madison to make a really good prediction because I don't really watch James Madison football. James Madison football. Thanks again for watching episode 9, the Chris Bottle episode of Stache Sports. If you have any comments, please leave them below. And again, my picks this week, if you want to go along with me, are Oklahoma over Alabama, the Oregon Ducks over James Madison, Ole Miss over Tulane, NC State over Memphis in a different bowl game, and then Miami over Texas A&M. Again, thank you for watching Stache Sports. This is Craig McLean signing off.